home and keep up. All right. So 2 and 3 are roots of the equation x squared plus kx plus 6. What is the value of k? So we're looking for b, right? How could I use my roots or zeros, Jason? Those are the x-intercepts, right? So that means my factors are x minus 2 times x minus 3. Okay, so Natalie, you have your hand up. What should I do next?
You can put it in like the table, and since you know that negative 2 times negative 3.
Good. So x minus 2, x minus 3, and since we're looking for the b value, all I really care about is this, right? So negative 2x and negative 3x creates negative 5. Very good. Okay, so 51 and 52 weren't necessarily the most missed, but I pulled them just so we could have some conversations about sequences. So arithmetic sequences are the same as linear functions, right? So what's my first term on that sequence? Negative 8. What's my common difference?
Positive 4.
Positive 4. This is the recursive rule. If I'm using the recursive rule, I have to sit here and add 4 8 different times to get to the 8th term.
Then you get 4 and minus 4. But then you get 4 again.
Well, remember the explicit rule, if I just want to plug it in, is f of 1 plus d times n minus 1, right? So what's f of 1? Negative 8. What's d? 4. And if I'm trying to find the 8th term, then it's going to be times 7. Very good. So negative 8 plus 4 times 7. What's 4 times 7? 28. Plus negative 8? 20. All right, number 52. Write an equation to represent the sequence below. Look at your answer choices. What kind of sequence would that be?
Geometric.
Geometric. Eliminate 2 just based on the fact that they're not written correctly.
B and D.
C and D. What's wrong with C?
Yeah, it's first off the n minus 1.
It's not n minus 1. What's wrong with D? It's not n minus 1 either. So I have 2 options, but they flipped the values. Which value should go first? The first term goes first. First term times your common ratio to the power of n minus 1. So it is A. Good. All right. Quadratics. Let's go through, we're going to go through a decent amount of this together, okay? Well, not, it's a big packet, so I'm going to go through some of it with you, and then you guys are going to do some more on your own. But I'm going to show you some tricks in the middle that'll help. All right. We all know parts of the parabola, so I'm not going to talk about that. Let's talk about finding the y-intercept in that form. What form is that? Vertex form. So my y-intercept is not 100, right?
It looks really messed up on.
It's negative 3 times x minus 4 squared plus 100. Right? Where is the y-intercept on the graph? Right across the y-axis, but what's always true? X equals 0. So I'm going to plug in 0 for x. What's 0 minus 4? 0. Or negative 4. Because on a graph, your y-intercept always has an x value of 0. Okay? So 0 minus 4, negative 4. So negative 3 times negative 4 squared plus 100. What's negative 4 squared? Positive 16. Positive 16 times negative 3. Use a calculator. Negative 48 plus 100. 52. So my y-intercept is 0, 52. Just be careful with that because we've had questions like that, and yes, the C value on standard form is your Y-intercept, but in vertex form, that value represents part of your vertex, not the Y-intercept. All right.
Couldn't you just also put it in the calculator?
Yes. How do I write a vertex form equation into standard form?
Yeah.
Area model first. So expand x minus 4 times x minus 4, x squared plus 16. So we've got 2 times x squared minus 8x plus 16. Now what? And then I distribute. So 2x squared minus 16x plus 32 minus 11. Am I done? Minus 11. So y equals 2x squared minus 16x plus 21. Very good. All right. Ready for a trick?
Yeah.
If I am graphing, what form is this? Vertex form. What's my vertex on this first problem? 2, 3. What would my axis of symmetry be? 2. It's an axis, so it's an equation. X equals 2. So axis of symmetry always X, asymptote always Y. All right. Does that give me my x-intercepts?
No.
Does it give me my y-intercepts? No, it does not. It gives me my vertex. So 2, 3 is my vertex. What's my A value? 1. Now, let me tell you something about the A value. This is where the trick is. Your A value is the distance from your vertex to the next point. It only works for the first point after the vertex. So I have an A value of 1, which means that it's opened up. And if I have my vertex here at 3, my next point on each side is 1 away. So it's going to be at 4 on both sides. That also helps you to find the A if you're looking at a graph.
Oh, yeah, because I looked at triangle.
So that only works for the first point. So I still have to plug in 0 to find my y-intercept, but if I keep going in a path that's similar to this, what would be true about my x-intercepts? I don't have any. There are no x-intercepts. Okay, let's find the y-intercept. We just did that on the problem before. How do I find the y-intercept? You can use your calculator. Go ahead. Plug it into your calculator. Put it in the graph and pull up the equation. Yes, you guys are using those exact calculators on your DOC. We just have to clear them and put them in test mode. You just can't use your own personal one. So if you pull up the table, you're looking for the y-intercept, so where x is 0. It is 7. Yep. Everybody get 7? Well, we were looking at an alternate route because we just did a problem like that. Okay. Flip the page. Let's talk about 5A. Because you have it as a relationship, not a. All right. X squared minus 11x plus 24. They're asking me for my zeros. They're asking me for my vertex. If they're looking for zeros, I need solutions, right? So I need to start thinking about my approach. Am I going to complete the square? Am I going to solve by square root? Am I going to factor it? Am I going to use quadratic formula? so on and so forth. Can I solve this using square roots?
No.
No, you have an x squared and an x, it's out. Could I complete the square? I could, but not friendly, right? It's odd.
Factor.
Or factor. A times C.
24.
24. Factors of 24 that have a sum of what?
8 and 3.
Negative 11,
-8.
negative 8, and negative 3. Boom, boom. Okay. This one's a quick one because A is 1, so what are my two factors? X minus 8 and x minus 3, but then my solutions will be positive 8 and positive 3. Because I set both of those equal to 0 to solve for those x's. Okay, so I have zeros at 8 and 3. That's going to help me find my vertex. Because if my zeros are at 3 and 8, what's true about my vertex? It's in the middle. So I need to figure out where this middle piece is.
5.5.
Why?
8 plus 3 is 11. 11 5 is 5.
So you average those to find the center. So 3 plus 8 is 11, and since there are 2 points, I average by dividing by 2, which is 5.5. Good. Which part of my vertex is that?
Your x-axis.
X-axis. So 5.5 is the x, but that doesn't give me my vertex. How would I find the rest of it?
Plug it in the x.
Plug it in x. I would plug it into your factored form. It's going to be a lot easier. So if I have 5.5 minus 8 times 5.5 minus 3, you can just plug it entirely into your calculator like that. What, Jason? Negative 6.25. Question, if I plugged that equation into my calculator and pulled up a table, would it give me my vertex?
5.5.
Yeah.
No. Because you have decimals. Your table's only going to pull up whole value x's, okay? I will show you how to find it on your calculator. All right, here we go. Calculator is up. What was my function? X squared minus 11x plus 24. Enter. Okay, so there's my parabola. Let's just double check. Control T. You see how all your x values are whole numbers. So I know it's 5.5, negative 6.25, but see how we can't see that value in between? We know it's there, but we don't know what it actually is. So I'm going to get out of my table, and I'm going to go to Menu, and we're going to analyze the graph. When you go to analyze the graph, what am I looking for? The vertex. Vertex isn't listed, but what would be associated with the vertex? The minimum. Why not the maximum? Good. Okay, you got it in there? Okay, go to Menu, Analyze Graph.
All I have is table in action.
Yeah.
Do you have it in as a relation again?
Oh, wait. Wait.
Yeah, mine also says that.
Do you have the table still up? Get out of the table. Push Control T again. Your table can't be open. Okay, so once you close your table, click Menu again, and it should have Analyze Graph. Okay, then we're going to click Minimum, and you need to move this line around. And we're going to find the minimum right here. See?
So, how do you know what are they? That is so.
Okay? Yes.
It doesn't show me.
How do we do that?
All right. So there's that. You can double check. You can work it out, but you can double check as well. Just make sure that you know both routes. Don't just necessarily jump straight to your calculator, because if you forget the steps, you need a backup. Okay? We good there? All right. Now let's talk about writing from a graph. Tell me some things about this parabola that you noticed. Opens down. Okay, I can see my vertex, my zeros, and my y-intercept. So zeros, vertex, y-intercept, which is going to help me a lot. So what are my zeros? -1, -7. What's my vertex? -4, 9. What's my y-intercept? -6. Okay. It's open down. What does that mean? The range is going down, so the range is less than or equal to what? 9. It's always including that vertex value. Okay. Now, my A is going to be negative. Based on what we talked about before, I should just be able to go between the first 2 points. What's the distance from that point to the next point? -1. So my A value is -1. Okay. Now, where this doesn't work well is if it's a fraction. Yes. Okay, so my A value is -1, which means I can start this, -x². I can start this, and I can start this, right? Do I have the information to fill in everything else? Yeah, standard form is probably going to be my last one, right? But if I'm doing vertex form, it would be negative times what? X plus 4 squared plus 9. Good. What about my factored form? Negative times x plus 1, x plus 7. Now, if I'm trying to find my standard form, I could use either the vertex form or the factored form a little faster. So, if I have x and x, x squared, 7 and 1, so how many x's in the middle? 8, but then it's negative, so -8, and then 7 and 1, but then it's negative. So we found the y-intercept to be -6. So then it just must be a bad graph.
Oh, yeah. I think the line should be fixed.
Yeah. Trust your equation over what the graph seems to look like, okay? Because the graph, since it's such a steep curve, it might give you a mistake. Okay. So one quick thing before I move on to like a word problem. If you have a parabola, and this is not this next one, I'm just trying to give you a different scenario. If this is my vertex, 1, 2, 3, you always have to look at the next point. This would be +3 as an A. But if it's a fraction, they're going to be further apart. So let's say that I was here. It's a super wide parabola. You would just use the slope. So it's up 1 over 3. So my A would be 1/3. Okay. So it's the slope between the first 2 points after the vertex. It only works with the first 2 points because that parabola would be like super wide, right? Which means that it has a fractional A. So the first 2 points are here. You would go up 1 over 3. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's talk about number 7, and then I'll let you guys work on that. So number 7, sideshow wildfires, cannon, hurling Krusty the Clown in the air. Krusty's path can be modeled by the equation y equals -8t squared plus 400t, where t is time and h is the height. Create a rough sketch. So looking at the equation, what's my y-intercept? No, that's a t. 0. 0, because it's +0. right? C value. So my y-intercept is 0. Think about the scenario. If he's shot in a cannon, he starts at the ground, where's he going to end up? On the ground. And that's where your parabola is created because it goes up and then it comes back down. A rough sketch, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. So now, before I even start answering questions that are below, I've got his launch point, his land point, and then the maximum. So what are the important pieces of the parabola mathematically? Zeros and vertex. So I'm going to need to be finding zeros and my vertex. The first question says, what's the maximum height? Well, that's part of my vertex, but I've got to figure some other stuff out first. I know my equation is negative 8t squared plus 400t. I'm going to have to find my zeros eventually. How would I find my zeros on that function? Okay, plug it in. Or factor it. What can factor from both of these? 8, negative 8. What else do they both have? T. Okay, what's negative 8t squared divided by 8t? Negative 8t. Just t. What's 400t divided by negative 8t? Negative 50. Okay, there is my factored form, which is where I'm going to be able to find my zeros, because 0 is equal to negative 8t, or 0 is equal to t minus 50. What would my first one be? How would I solve for this t? It's multiplication. Divide by negative 8. What's 0 divided by negative 8? 0. Did we already know that? Yes. So the first one is 0. What's this one? 50. So that tells me he was launched at 0, 0, and he lands at 50, 0. So after 50 seconds, he lands. So after how many seconds will it take for Krusty to land back on the ground? 50 seconds. Okay, how does that help me find this? Average then. What's the center? 25. So what does that tell me as far as my questions? Okay, my vertex, but look, what is the is that the maximum height? Is that how long after Krusty will he reach the maximum height? Yes. That's how long it takes him to reach his height. Yes.
How do you get the equation to solve, like, how do you get 0 equals negative 18?
Okay, so remember when we factored, like, let's say that I had negative 30t squared plus 5t plus 5, right? What can you factor from that? Just a 5, right? Or a negative 5. So I would do this. Yeah, because you want to leave your first one positive. So 6t minus t minus 1, right? Yeah, sorry. Okay, so if I'm here and I then factor this 5 has nothing to do with the actual solutions, but the difference is that you factored out a variable. So this is still needing to be solved. If you factor out a variable, you need to set that section equal to 0, but if you don't factor out a variable, you can just cancel it. Yes?
So if you set 0 equals to negative 5 and 0
Well, you would have to factor it, and I don't think that factors. Like, let's say that I had, 2t minus 3, which is not the case. This is not the solution, and t minus 1. I would factor these, and this negative 5 would mean nothing, because it has no t. If it has the variable, you have to solve it. If you get confused, use your calculator and plug it in. Okay? So, we're here. How do I find this point? I know it's 25. 25 what? Plug it in. So go ahead and plug 25 in. What's the maximum height? 5,000. Okay, I'll show you on your calculator. So we know how to find the maximum from the graph. Let's find the intercepts. Okay, so if I go on new document, what was my original parabola? Negative 8t squared. You have to use x, okay? You can't plug in t. So plus 400x, because if you plug in t, there's no t on the graph, so it won't pull anything up. So then enter. You're not going to be able to see much because it's a huge parabola. You can pull up the table, but if I want to zoom it out, I can go to Window, Zoom, and I can keep going until I see everything, which it's going to take forever. Let me zoom back in. This might not be a good one to check. All right, so now go to Menu, and we're going to analyze the graph again. What part would be the zeros? What do you think I would click? Intersection. And you just have to find it. No, Menu. It's not working. Oh, zeros. Duh. There it is. You just have to get the whole parabola in your window. Okay, I'll start over. New document. No. Add a graph. Negative 8x squared plus 400x. Okay. I'm going to zoom out. So Menu, zoom out, and I'm just going to click it until I can see both zeros. So here I am. I'm good. I can see both zeros. In the center. You have to go into the center and then click. Okay, so then go to Menu, and we're going to analyze the graph, and I'm looking for my zeros, not the intersection. The intersection is for systems, where you can find the cross of two systems. So 0, see this line? It's different than the last one. You need to get your whole parabola in a window, so I'm just going to click over on the left and drag, and click over on the right, and then when I move my cursor, it'll tell me where my zeros are. Why won't it? Then you try it again. There's one. There's one. As that window's open, 0, 0. It's a little bit harder to do on the calculator. So just try to be careful. Try to have your other routes given. But see, as I clicked off, they're now on there.
I can't get the other zero.
Okay, I'll come and work with you guys in just a second. Okay,